What up though, y'all? It's Chris. I appreciate you connecting with me during my 20,000 steps challenge. This is day one of that, and I don't know where I'm at now, man. You know, it's easy to get lost doing that. You just keep stepping, and just eventually you'll see that number turn to 20K. So just keep stepping. So if any of y'all are out there doing this with me, keep stepping, okay? 20,000 is not like getting that 10,000. It's a whole different beast. But we're gonna talk about Springfield, Ohio again. I guess it's time to do a follow-up on that. The governor of Ohio, he was speaking about the situation that they're dealing with there, and he chose his words very carefully. He was very choosy on what he would say and what he wouldn't. But ultimately, he was saying that he's not against the program of bringing on board migrants. He said that when you have people that are in a place that they're trying to get away from, basically a bad place that they're trying to get away from, there are programs in place to bring them here. So he's not against the program, and he made sure to really, hammer that home, that he is not against these programs. So you guys, listen, when it's time to go to the polls, y'all need to remember stuff like that. I'm not telling you which way to vote. I'm just saying that if you are for this or against this, this is something to remember when it's time to go to the polls. So there's that. And he also said, when you're dealing with the things like what they're dealing with, so this is an admission that there is a problem there, but he wouldn't go into details. He was very careful not to really go into any details and say exactly what those are. So all of the people that are out there saying that this is a hoax, that this is like politically motivated, that you got folks from one aisle or the other, specifically one aisle that they mentioned, you got people from one side of the aisle rather, going out there and drumming up, doing some fear mongering or whatever, and that this is not really happening. In his comment, even though he was vague, he did acknowledge that there is some issue. So for those of you that are like, there's been no video or anything like that, I get that. I get that. We're in an age where everybody's got a supercomputer in their pocket, right? We're in the age where everybody's got a supercomputer with an HD camera in their pocket, and you like, why aren't videos of this, these horrors being spread? So I certainly can understand that, because I too have wondered why there's not videos of this circulating around if things are in fact as bad as are being reported. So that's something I have wondered. I'm not going to just sit here and deny, though, that nothing is happening. Something clearly is happening, because they wouldn't have held the town hall for it to begin with. All right, you don't hold a town hall for a non-issue. You don't gather the citizens up and let them come in and sound off for an issue that really doesn't exist. So that's right there, number one, that something is amiss. We don't know exactly what, but something is amiss, because the town hall wouldn't have happened otherwise. And the governor acknowledged that something is amiss, though he didn't want to expand upon specifically what he was referring to. So there's that. So something is happening. We've heard people from the area tell stories of things that are happening. I watched a video earlier of a lady who says she lives in the area, she drives through this, she sees it every day, and she's like, things are pretty bad. She was saying, you got kids going to schools, the school system is a bit stretched thin. because they have all these children coming in now. Many don't know how to speak English, so that could be a problem. There's clearly thousands of people that have been dropped off here. Thousands. Now the number changes. I mean, I've heard 2,000, I've heard 10,000, I've heard 20,000. 20,000 sounds like a lot. So I don't know if it's really that many, but it's clearly thousands. Every number that I've heard has been thousands. So that is universal. It's thousands. And when you drop thousands of people in an area, it's going to have an impact. Period. And when you drop thousands of people in an area, and now the area that already is shaped for a certain way of life, it has to now suddenly accommodate a much larger number of people than what the everyday expectation was. It's not to say that if there's an influx of people, they can't make adjustments to accommodate the influx of people, but it's not going to be immediate. So when you drop thousands of people in an area out of nowhere, and those folks are bringing the conditions that are being described, yeah, stuff's not going to be cool right away. Stuff's not going to be cool for a while. So if you in Springfield, remember this sort of stuff when it's time to go to the polls, whether it be the presidential one or whether it be just locally. Remember this, be it you're for it or against it. There are people that are for this. There are people that support this. So I guess, for you, remember that when you time to go to the polls, you support this or whatever. But for those of you that are against this, yes, you need to remember this when it's time to go to the polls. You got to hold these politicians accountable. You got to remember, ultimately, these people work for you. You put them in office. And I reiterate the importance of voting. People vote a certain way and they expect something and they get something else. And then they continue to vote the same way to get the exact same result. And they're upset that they're still continuing to get exactly what they're voting for. So vote, educate yourself on matters that are happening. Do not kid yourself into thinking your vote doesn't matter. Your vote doesn't count. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. If this governor of Ohio, if you're somebody who does not appreciate the way the state is being ran, this whole migrant situation, you need to make your voice heard by going out and vote. Your vote needs to reflect that. Somebody that's talking about they're in support of a program that drops people off in your neighborhood to tear it up. I wouldn't, me personally, if I had an issue with that happening, they wouldn't be getting my vote again. And I wouldn't be sitting up talking about something my vote doesn't matter. I would not leave this up to chance. I'd be, soon as the polls open, I'd be out there ready to cast my vote. Like, really, it's very important. I say the same thing here locally. We had to do a couple clean sweeps in terms of our leadership here in Detroit, because the people in power were stealing. They were stealing from the city. It was like you got SUVs being bought. Listen, if you a Detroiter, you know what I'm talking about. If you know, you know. You guys on the outside may not get that. That might go over your head. But you got SUVs being bought. You got Harley Davidson motorcycles that were supposedly bought for the police, going missing, to be taken for joyrides and personal uses. That sort of stuff. We had a lot of goofy stuff happening here, man. And the thing is that when you see stuff like that happening, you got to go to the polls and get those people out, because you can't be spending money on all this sort of stuff, trips to places, shopping sprees to places, but then always talking about the city is broke. That just doesn't work. The city got some money because there's never a limit to spending when it comes to buying luxury stuff for the people who were put in place to serve us. Okay. There always seemed to be money when they needed something. We had all types of under the table stuff that got exposed because our news here, man, they did an excellent investigative job in exposing a lot of underhanded stuff. So we just had to we had to get a lot of people out. We had to vote people out. Many people resigned. Some people resigned on their own. Some people resigned because there was a police investigation due to the sort of uncovering that the news channels did. It was quite a time. And if you're somebody that was here, you know what I'm talking about because you lived through it like I lived through it. Vote, and vote accordingly. Stop leaving stuff up to chance. Stop leaving stuff in the hands of other people who they're not acting in the capacity to serve you. Because many of these people, life is not affecting them the way it's affecting you. Okay, a lot of these politicians are multi-millionaires, and they not struggling to fill up their gas tank like you are. They're not struggling when they're at the grocery store, and the same groceries that they used to pay $100 for now cost them $150. The $200 worth of groceries that used to have to go in the trunk now just goes into a few bags that they can throw into their passenger seat. They're not affected by this stuff. The inflation and all that sort of stuff, they can easily afford it. So you got to keep that in mind. Now, all these politicians typically are well off, but you still need to vote in people who have some sort of self-awareness and aren't out of touch with the struggles of everyday people. Somebody, in my opinion, a governor that would get on national news and say, I'm not against these programs, when a city in his state is going through whatever it's going through, this migrant situation, however bad it may be, is bad enough where the citizens are speaking out. They're starting to get on social media and stuff and talk about it a lot more. If you are in Ohio and the person who runs the state gets on national news and essentially says he doesn't really mind what's going on, and ultimately he said it's on the federal government. Oh, it's on the federal government to help out. What? Man, I recommend you vote that guy out. Like, I'm gonna just go ahead and say it. If you are somebody in Ohio and you heard that and that doesn't upset you, I don't know what to tell you. If you're one of the people living in that area right now and you're dealing with the situation that does not at all sound good, maybe it's being made to sound worse than what it really is, but worse than what it really is don't mean that it's not bad. All right, it could still be bad, and people are just making it out to sound worse than what it really is. People like to say, "Oh, they're exaggerating or whatever." So, okay, but if they are exaggerating, does that mean that it's good though? That's the narrative that people like to go with. Oh, things are fine. They're just exaggerating. No, things are not fine. Things are bad. So even if the situation is being overblown and exaggerated, that doesn't change the fact that the situation is probably still bad. It's just probably not as bad as it's being painted out to be. But we don't know because we're not there. People who are there, telling people who are there, if you're somebody that lives somewhere else and you're trying to tell people who are there that their situation is not as bad as they're trying to make it seem, where do you get off? How do you figure you're even in a position to tell them that? Sometimes you got to just be quiet and stay in your lane. Telling people that are actually living this daily that it's not as bad as they're making it seem, and you're not there yourself. That's crazy, man. So yeah, if you guys are there in that area and you listen to your governor basically say that the situation that you're dealing with it's just not going to get better unless the federal government gets involved to help out or whatever, I wouldn't vote for him, man. I would not vote for him again. If he is up for another term, yeah, y'all should see to it that term never sees the light of day. And if this is his last term, he's not up for another term, y'all need to really make sure that the person who y'all put in there next is going to come in there with a new frame of mind and is not going to be talking no nonsense like that, for real. But I appreciate y'all. I'm gonna lead us there. You know, this whole migrant situation. I didn't think I'd be talking about it a second time, but who knows? I might even end up talking about it a third time because it's still an issue. Appreciate y'all connecting with me. Give me them thumbs up. Leave me them comments. Subscribe. Holla at y'all later. Peace.